starting June 1st through June 7th. You do need to register for those courses, so see more information online. Again, that's June 7th through, June 1st through the 7th. This is class number 5 of 6 of how to develop Bodhichitta, and we'll get started momentarily.
Yeah. Hello. I'm gonna do a little work on the blackboard here for just a second. I want to change some things around a little bit.
If it doesn't erase, I can grab the spray.
Yeah. Almost. Almost.
More like paper towel.
All right, thank you. That's mother. We're not mother. Trying to make this easier. This is how I memorized it anyway, thoughts. You can. If you don't mind. I'm going to have to move these around. There's 11 points. All right, so thoughts of the self-cherishing thought. And then, well, do the best you can. Brr. I need a blanket up here. I was all covered up. I keep my house cold. I hope everybody's had a good week and stayed away from COVID-19. I have my gatekeeper here tonight. I'll show you a picture of her. Here she is. There she is. There's the gatekeeper.
Hello.
That's Lily Brown. That's my oldest daughter. And believe it or not, she works in I'm bragging on her now because she's the first. Everybody who comes into, Robbie and I are in medical practice together, primary care. So, we're kind of low-hanging fruit because we're older. But, if we got it, we might be in trouble. But Lily is, just moved back to Raleigh recently, and so she's working not even in the office. Well, she works in the office too, but she works and whenever a patient calls, they call the office, and then she'll tell them to come in, and she checks their blood pressure, their temperature, ask them all the questions about COVID-19, and if they can get past the gatekeeper, they can come in and be seen. But she's brave. I think it's a little risk involved there, but I think she's young enough. If she got sick, she'd be fine. But it's still a little bit scary. Around now to be in a medical office. But she does a great job keeping us safe. Thank you, Lily. And she's writing down all these meditations on bodhicitta. So in a minute, when she's done, take your time. So I'll go over this little cognitive stuff here about bodhicitta, some things in a way of reviewing things that we've talked about so far. You may or may not remember that Atisha, who was the top, he was like the utmost scholar in India back in the day, and he combined the two lineages of Nagarjuna and Asanga into what became the origin of the Lam Rim. So Atisha really is responsible, and that's what this statue back here in the back, let's see those of you, the new statue we have surrounded by the 21 Taras, that's the statue of Atisha. And his followers were called Kadampas. How about that? So, we got an auspicious name. And Kadampa translates into, the way and I don't speak Tibetan, I've just heard that it translates into those who take the teachings of the Buddha as personal advice to be put into practice. That every word of the teachings is personal advice to be put into practice. So we're all Kadampas, right? And we're, at least we aspire to be. So we aspire to put the teachings into practice. And let's see. Anyway, the Lam Rim, one of the unique qualities is that it involves both study and practice, and there are no inconsistencies in the Lam Rim teachings, and the instructions can easily be put into practice, and you can experience the results. It's when we teach the Lam Rim systematically and it's done well by a qualified teacher, you can actually see how it's possible to transform your mind. But to be effective, it's important to study and do meditation, and a big part of it, the big part of it is what we call accumulation of merit, which is positive potential or karma, and purification of our negative qualities. So there's the accumulation of positive potential and the purification of negativity is a big part of our practice at this stage. How you doing, Lil? Getting there?
No,
I think that's it.
No, there's one more. Well, Bodhichitta. I'll just write it down.
Okay. All right.
If we can't read it, I can rewrite it.
Tongue
I
lid.
don't
That's
know, it's
okay.
kinda like close together.
No, that's fine.
I was trying to make it.
All right.
Whoops.
12. Yeah. It's actually okay. Doesn't matter.
Did I forget number 9? Did I forget one?
No, you got them numbered wrong. It's 9, 10, 11.
That's really
No, you're fine. Erase. You got 2 10. Wait a minute. Do you
no,
right?
I just forgot them. I just forgot them.
Oh, you got it.
It is right at the bottom.
Yeah, but it's going to be a total of 11. So they're going to be 11 points. 11 points. So if we can memorize these 11 points, you're going to get an A in this class. There's no way I can not give you an A. But anyway, it's a combination of 2 sets. Thank you very much. Nice job. So, yeah. You got that? Okay.
Because Zoom folks aren't seeing this.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Here's the deal again. There was these teachings that came down, down through there were 2 different lineages. One was through Shantideva and another was through Asanga. And so the one lineage was called Seven Cause and Effect. And so the seven cause and effect, and this is the combination. What we've got up on the board right now, and did you type these up yet? But you can see them. This is the 11 points that we're going to go through tonight in meditation in just a few minutes. But these are the two lineages. And remember, the first step in developing compassion in general, particularly the kind of compassion that we aspire to have. I mean, compassion for somebody you love is not hard to do, but compassion for strangers and people that we feel aversion toward, very difficult thing to do. So equilibrium is the crucial foundation of, or equanimity is the foundation of everything that we're meditating on, or the foundation of the development of bodhicitta, but also in universal compassion. Absolutely, we have to have an equanimous mind where we're not clinging to the friends or feeling aversion toward the enemies or indifference towards strangers. So anyway, the seven cause and effect. The first one is seeing all. The first seven cause and effect. And it's just 7 points. You can dig them out of here. But the first one is seeing all sentient beings as mother, recollecting their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness, great love, compassion. Then there's a great resolve, or what I call extraordinary intention. And then bodhicitta is the 7th point. So the 7 cause and effect. Again, start out by seeing all sentient beings as having been your mother. Now, before I say anything else, I just read this today. This is probably the hardest meditation of all the meditations in generating bodhicitta, is to be able to see all sentient beings as your mother. Because obviously, even if you have a really strong faith in rebirth, but to imagine that we've been reborn countless times, and every lifetime have had a mother, and so everybody's been our mother, and not just once, but countless times. And that she's been my mother when I was a dog, and when I was a cat, and when I was an alligator, and when I was a hippo, and when I was a cockroach, and when I was a mosquito, whatever. And even in realms of existence that maybe we don't even think of or possible. In every lifetime, I've had to have a mother, and the mother of this lifetime will be the mother in future lifetimes, and as she's been my mother countless previous lifetimes. So that's number one. Yes.
When you say love someone like your mother, what is that like? What does that mean?
Well,
So let's repeat the question after you get it, Don.
yeah. So we have one person in the audience. No, two. Linda's not asking questions tonight. That was Lily. She was saying, loving. You're saying, what does love mean? Is that what you're talking about?
Like love, I'm saying, I feel like people have different versions of like love for their mother. Like when you say love people like your mother, does that imply like you forgive them regardless of
Well, right now we're talking about seeing everybody as having been mother. Okay. Now, the love part comes next. But right now, we're just opening up the mind to the possibility that there have been countless former lifetimes. We've been born countless times. In every lifetime, we've had a mother. The mother of this life has been the mother countless previous lifetimes, and will again be our mother in future lifetimes. This is the attitude that we're, and that's why I said it's a hard one for us to even open up to. But I'm ask people to creatively align. I like that term, creatively align with this possibility, because immediately, I mean, if you do this meditation well, when you see somebody, you feel connection. You feel there's some natural connection to them, like there's some connection. I'm not sure what it is, but you do. And then the second part of it is recollecting the kindness of our mothers, and our mother has in former lifetimes, and even maybe in this lifetime too, but in former lifetimes has given up her body. You know, a lot of mothers used to, and still do, occasionally die in childbirth. She's protected us, provided us with our temporal needs and education, and there's so many things we can think about that our mother of this lifetime, the kindness that she's shown us. But also, if we look at just the things we have, if we're just talking about when she wasn't our mother, just in this lifetime, if we look at, there's not one thing we have that doesn't depend upon someone else. You know, like the clothing that we wear, the Kadampa Center, you know, the building that we're in, all the things, this piece of paper, I mean, you know, it has ink on it. Just think of you know, there might be 100,000 or 1,000,000 people involved in the creation of this piece of paper, because it came from wood that had to be logged, went to a paper factory, and somebody had to build the paper factory, and it turned out paper, and then somebody had to get the ink, and blah, 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 and the computers, and it's amazing. Everything we have, you know, depends upon the kindness of others. So there's, you know, the lights that are on tonight depend upon others. Everything that we enjoy, that bring us some pleasure, enjoyment in life, at least external things, depend on others, and even the Dharma depends on the kindness of others to keep the teachings alive. You know, even our enemies who've been our mothers in past lifetimes, what are they responsible for? The people that give us a hard time. They're the cause of us to develop tolerance and patience. Remember, we don't develop tolerance and patience and dependence upon our friends. That's why we call them friends, right? We develop tolerance and patience and dependence upon people that push our buttons. So people that give us a hard time actually give us an opportunity to see how well our practice has progressed, where we're weak, where we need to do work, and then help us to develop the qualities of tolerance and patience. Those, of the 6 perfections, the third perfection is developing patience and tolerance. And without the development of that perfection of patience and tolerance, there's no bodhisattvas. There's no bodhisattvas. There's no Buddhas. So we depend upon others for everything, even the Dharma. So then the next one is the next point is wishing to repay the kindness, and that's just playing off of the natural instinct that if somebody's been kind to us, that we would like, we naturally want to repay their kindness. And I don't know if there are any pharmaceutical reps out there, but they did have in business they know they understand. They understand that if they give you something, you're going to think, I should give them something back. If they bring, you and your staff lunch and tell you about their drug, they expect us to prescribe the drug. And that's just how it works. That's just how the mind works. So it's a natural instinct to wish to repay the kindness of all of our kind mother sentient beings who have, again, been kind to us in countless former lifetimes. And then the next meditation, which is not on here, but it's just the next step after wishing to repay their kindness, is called love. And it's this, remember we define love as the wish that others have happiness and the causes of happiness. And it's not sentimentality. It's a sincere wish that others have happiness and its causes. And then again, you have to have, you can't feel, if you see somebody suffering who you hate, you could actually rejoice. So love is important for the development of compassion. It has to be really, for compassion to be deep and sincere, there has to be a sense of connection and love. And so compassion is the wish that others be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. And then the great resolve, and that just kind of falls out of what we've done up until now. We've seen all beings as mother, remembered their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness. We develop love for them, then we develop compassion for them, and then we develop this sincere wish that which is number 10 on this list I have down here, the great resolve or the extraordinary intention, we say, okay, I am personally responsible for the happiness of universal living beings. I'm personally responsible for helping them to develop, to go from wherever they are in their evolution, spiritual evolution, particularly, wherever they are, all the way to supreme enlightenment. And it's my job. It's not Lily's job. It's not Robbie Watkins' job. It's not Linda's job. It's not Gishy Gallick's job. It's our job. That's the attitude, this extraordinary intention or great resolve that a bodhisattva has. Okay, not an easy one. It's something that it's not an instinctive thought that comes to most people, but it's something that through practice, the mind, through the force of familiarity, you can do anything with the mind. You can retrain the mind. So you just have to get, and that's why we go back. I told you there's going to be some repetition in this class, and this is why we're trying to plant the seeds that will ripen and definitely ripen the cause of future happiness. Then the next one, and this is actually the outline that you see above. That's the one I want you to memorize. Okay, it's the one I want you to memorize. So then you see the equality of self and others. So we talked about that at some length. And again, the way the Dalai Lama does it is he sees himself on one side of an imaginary line, and on the other side are others. How many are others? Others are countless. So he sees them all as living beings, in ordinary human form, but countless living beings. So self is one, and others are countless, right? So who's more important? Well, our natural instinct is to think, I'm more important, but others are countless. But we go, I'm more important, but others are countless. So His Holiness, he does this meditation, and he thinks, what do I want? What do we all want in our heart of hearts? Every one of us wants to have happiness and its causes, and does not want to suffer or have anything to do with suffering. So we want to be happy, and we don't want to suffer. And then we go across this line, we start asking each one of these universal living beings, and we get the same answer, all the way from a small insect, to, whatever, the largest mammal or whatever. Everyone wants the same thing. Everyone wants happiness, doesn't want to suffer. And so we think about this in meditation. We think about it, again, looking at yourself, but also thinking about others, and how we're all exactly the same. We're all equal in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. And so we're focusing on that, not on the times when they were our worst enemy or they harmed us and all that. Because, by the way, when they did harm us, for example, what was the source of that? It was their own past karma, and they were under the force of their delusions. They were not being motivated by wisdom and compassion. They were motivated by ignorance. And so, when the truth is known, when people are acting out of wisdom and compassion, they don't harm one another. And so we try to develop this sense of equality of self and others. So just for just a second, because we've gone through these other points. Just for a second, just think about one or two or three people so we can make this personal. It's really important not to turn, when you start thinking about universal sentient beings, it gets a little bit out of sort of hard to relate to it, isn't it? So think of one or two people and think, I want to be happy, I don't want to suffer. And then think, and it could be a friend, it could be somebody that that you even feel that's like a neutral about, and then even somebody that you feel some little some distance or aversion or resistance to. And you can think about each one of them and think, this person, you can say their name, wants to be happy, doesn't want to suffer. Just like me. They're just like me. We're equal. We're equal in that way, in that most important fundamental way. We know something very intimate about them. And then the strangers that we see every day, we know something very intimate about them too. They want to be happy. They don't want to suffer. They're just like me. They're equal to me in wanting happiness and not wanting to suffer. And then the so-called enemy or person that we're having difficulty with, we look into their heart of hearts, and honestly, everybody wants to be happy and doesn't want to suffer. It motivates everything we do, right up and even including suicide. As horrible as that seems, people often, because they can't suffer anymore, death looks like happiness. And people have taken their lives in the name of trying to escape suffering and find some kind of relief, which we think of as happiness. So so everybody wants to be happy, even our worst enemy, and doesn't want to suffer. We're all equal in that way. Okay? That's important. And I remember Geshe Donyo, I think, was the one that said this. He said, this is that meditation of seeing the quality of self in others for a lot of people, since remembering all sentient beings as mother is so hard for us, the quality of self in others is the best way to develop love. Again, the wish that others could be happy and have its causes. That's the best way to develop. That's the mind of loving kindness. So it's not a lightweight meditation at all. Then we reflect on the faults of self-cherishing selfishness, and we can look at. We've talked about this. Honestly, when I read this, and I said this before, when I got these teachings the first time, and I would consider myself fairly self-centered, thinking, but I didn't think I was any different than anybody else. I thought, everybody's kind of looking out for themselves, and you want to find happiness, so you've got to get it. It's up to you to go out and find the experiences and have the experiences that make you feel good, make you happy. And so I think a lot of us think that the self-cherishing thought is our friend. Turns out it's our worst enemy. Selfishness and the self-cherishing thought is our worst enemy. It's the cause of killing and stealing and adultery, right? Selfishness, you wouldn't do that if you didn't have a selfish mind. Lying, deceiving others, bad-mouthing, slandering others, harsh speech, frivolous speech. Again, self-cherishing. Those are the actions of the body and the speech. Killing, stealing, adultery, the three of body, lying, slander, harsh, and frivolous speech, speech, and then the mind, greed, hatred, and ignorance are all based on self-cherishing too. The self-cherishing thought. So we have to begin to see it for what it is, our worst enemy. It's the cause of all disputes, all divorces, all wars, all negative karma that's been created. This sounds vast, but I'm just telling you, this is in the teachings. I'm not making it up. It's the cause of all the negative karma, all the suffering of universal living beings from the beginning of beginningless time, which is a long time, up until right now, is the cause of one thing, the self-cherishing thought, the selfish self-cherishing thought, where we project a false sense of self and we cling to it, we cherish it, Like it's the most important thing. Don't talk to me that way. How dare you treat me that way? I want that. You can hear the ego, the egocentricity in it. It's just how we operate instinctively. And it's gotten us into trouble forever and ever, and it will continue to be our worst enemy until we see it for what it is, as an enemy, and begin to confront it. Whenever we feel the selfishness, self-cherishing thought arising, and oftentimes you can body, by the way, all of you yoga masters out there have an advantage, because in yoga you really tune into your physical body, and you can feel when you're tensing up. That's self-cherish, that's the ego. There's something going on in the body that's when it tenses up, particularly around the heart, when that sense of spaciousness goes away and it constricts, and we can feel it in our body. That's usually a manifestation of the self-cherishing mind. If we can relax and let it go, it can pass through. It can move on. So then there's the advantages of cherishing others. So, Lama Zopa, again, bumper sticker, for happiness, cherish others. So all the happiness, that we've ever experienced from the beginning of beginningless time until now is the, you can go back to that. I like having it up there. Okay. Anyway, so cherishing others is is just crucial. It's so crucial to and we don't think about it, but when we really think about cherishing others, and what I mean cherishing others kind of speaks for itself, but it's kind of like love, but there's a sense of more to it than even that. So when we cherish others, we wouldn't harm them, would we? We certainly wouldn't take their lives. Killing, stealing. We wouldn't take their belongings. We wouldn't harm them by behaving in a sexually inappropriate or harmful way. So those are the three of body. If we cherish others, we wouldn't lie, we wouldn't slander, we wouldn't speak harshly or waste their time with frivolous gossip. So cherishing others is sort of the antidote to the 10 non-virtuous actions. Cherishing others is, in a way, is an antidote to greed. It's an antidote to anger. It's an antidote to ignorance. Okay? Very important. So we have to look at the faults of self-cherishing and the advantages of cherishing others. Now the next, I've moved exchanging self and others, I've moved that to this particular point because I want to talk about it in two different ways. When Jeffrey Hopkins teaches this, he says that what we're exchanging is it's the fallout of the meditations we've done before, where we're seeing the faults of selfishness and the advantages of cherishing others, and then we go and Jeffrey says what we're doing is exchanging the thought of self-cherishing for the thought of cherishing others. Okay? So we're exchanging the thought of self-cherishing with the thought of cherishing others. So what does that mean? That means that, like, when we get up like, we never ever forget others. We're constantly aware of others and cherishing them and treating them with respect and honor and thinking about what they want and need, like that. So so, like, for example, and some of the practices that you can do to get familiarized with yourself with this is, okay, I'm getting up this morning, I'm getting out of bed, I'm going to do my best to keep my mind in a positive way for the sake of others. I'm going to you go get in the shower and you get clean and you try to look your best for others, and you put on clean clothes so you don't smell bad, and but you want to look your best for others. And you go to work and you work for others, and in a real way, most people's jobs are very much involved in serving others. I mean, that's why you get a paycheck. And so, and then whatever we do, when we eat the healthy food so we can continue to be of service to others. When we go to sleep at night, we try to get to bed early or at a reasonable time so we can get sufficient rest, so we can be of benefit to others. So again, everything we do, we constantly try to remind ourselves that the motivation behind it is cherishing others. Then, impossible for negative things no negative karma gets created in the environment of cherishing others, right? So we're exchanging self-cherishing for cherishing others. Another way that it's been explained, and I kind of like this too. I just got reminded by this, but when I was reading a description of this meditation from a friend of mine who's a former monk. Anyway, when he was talking about exchanging self and others, he was saying that when we do see the faults of self-cherishing and the advantages of cherishing others, then it's sort of natural to actually begin to play with the idea of cherishing others more than yourself, right? Because self-cherishing gets you in trouble. So cherishing others is helpful. So, beginning to have the attitude of cherishing others, more than yourself, is a powerful attitude to have. And so how can we develop that? I mean, how can we possibly get to the point where when we're exchanging self for others, that we actually get to the point where we cherish others more than self? And when I really talk about self, I'm not talking about the true self. I'm talking about the ignorant sense, the false self, the projected sense of self that we cling to, that we call self-grasping, ignorant self. That's the false self, the fake self. That self doesn't exist. So we're exchanging this mistaken sense of self with this attitude of cherishing others. So the best way to develop the attitude of cherishing others more than self is called Tonglen. Is taking on the suffering of others, the absolute opposite of what self-cherishing wants to do, isn't it? Self-cherishing does not want to take on other people's suffering. It does not. And self-cherishing does not want to give away my 401k and my money and my belongings and my positive karma and my positive merit. It does not want to do that. But that's what we're practicing in Tonglen. Taking on others' suffering with compassion, okay? And giving sentient beings, living beings, one's possessions, body, merit, and so on. Everything positive. So now we're going to do this meditation for...
Don, do you have a moment to answer a question?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a moment to try to answer a question.
Okay. This relates to cherishing others. Okay. The question is, so if we do not self-cherish, so we say, okay, I'll do whatever you want to make you happy, and then people just totally take advantage of that and use and abuse us. How are we, as unenlightened beings, still identified as a separate self to avoid feeling resentment or grief that we are not valued or cared for? And then the second part of that is, I get that once I no longer identify as a separate self, this won't matter, but we have to avoid generating anger for others along the way, right?
Right. I mean, I think you sort of answered the question. But it's yourself. But again, it's got to be. Remember when we talk about all of this, when we talk about combining like compassion, there is this thing in Buddhism called idiot compassion, right? Where, this compassion where there's no wisdom. And the example they use in the scripture, one of the examples anyway, is the monkey who sees the fish swimming in the stream and goes, oh my gosh, the fish is going to drown. So the monkey jumps over and grabs the fish and throws him on the rocks to save his life, because he's, all the monkey can see is the monkey goes, well, if I was down there, I would be drowning. So, pulls him up on the rocks. But that's the motivation is compassion, but it's not combined with wisdom. In the same way, when we're cherishing others, it doesn't mean we become a doormat. It has to be combined with wisdom. We have to have our boundaries. We have to be able to say, hey, that's not being kind to me, or I'm not ready to take this on. We look at our own, what can you handle in terms of how much suffering can you take on? If you're a bodhisattva, for example, the Buddha in one of his former lifetimes, a lot of people have read the story of the Buddha was a bodhisattva. In a former lifetime before he became a Buddha, he was a bodhisattva, and he saw a lioness, and she was starving, and her cubs were starving, and he literally jumped off the cliff, knowing that it was going to kill him, to offer his body as food for the cubs and the lioness. Okay? We're not ready to jump off a cliff and offer our body as food, but we do it to the degree that we're able to. We practice. We began to see the problems with self-cherishing, and we began to, as much as we can, not fall prey to the self-cherishing thought. And there may be some limit to how far we can go. And cherishing others, we might go, well, I can cherish my friends and strangers and some of my enemies, but there's this one guy I'm not going there. I'm not ready for that one yet. And that's fine. You go where we can go. We do what we can do. We're given the information here, but this is how a bodhisattva trains their mind systematically to develop the bodhicitta. Yes?
And so a follow-up question from another student after that first question from the first student says, so in other words, acting with compassion doesn't always mean giving people what they want.
Absolutely. Acting in compassion can be a kick in the butt.
Love tap.
Yeah, tough love smack, Lily said. But it's called, sometimes we call it tough love. Where a compassionate move, parents have, you can pop your kid out of anger, or if your child is running the street 20 times in a row and you've asked them and then yelled at them and done everything you can, and then you go, bam, one good pop on the bottom, and all of a sudden they don't go out in the street anymore. Sometimes, and you're doing it out of love, right? Out of compassion, because you don't want to see them be killed. So compassion can be tough love. It can definitely manifest. In fact, it's some of us think that, for example, social injustice, to right social injustices, we have to get angry. We have to get fierce. We have to get angry. And that has to be the motivation for righting social injustices. And Buddhism would say, no. When we get angry, we've just paralyzed the best part of our mind, which is wisdom. If we want to solve the problem, we need to bring wisdom to this difficult social injustice issue. Not anger, not a delusion, but wisdom. Okay? So it's possible, to resolve issues, difficult issues, to bring, instead of being angry, bring wisdom to the moment to solve difficult problems. Okay? So we don't need to be angry, use anger in situations like that. So compassion, again, compassion can manifest in a very fierce way. The way these people are being treated is wrong. And I'm going to do something about it. I'm not just going to sit here and watch it. I'm going to do something about it, and it's going to be fierce. But I'm not going to be motivated by anger. I'm going to be motivated by pure compassion, fierce compassion. Compassion combined with wisdom. Okay, in fact, the manifestation, one of the Hatha Yoga Tantric manifestations of this fierce compassion is called Yamantaka. It's the very first Hatha Yoga Tantra retreat that people in our tradition are asked to do. And it's this particular Hatha Yoga Tantra deity is scary looking. I'm not going to go into it, but just trust me. But it's all about bringing wisdom and compassion together to get things done. Because sometimes the soft, gentle way doesn't work. Sometimes it takes tough love.
And Don, the first student who asked the original question says, so we go as far as we can without falling into anger or hatred. That makes sense, and over time we are able to do more.
Yes. We just practice. We start. We're baby Buddhists. All of us are baby Buddhists. One day we'll be the real deal, but right now we're just little baby Buddhists. So baby Buddhists, can't carry, 1,000-pound weight. We can only carry we carry as much as we can. We do as much as we can, and then gradually we become stronger and mentally, and then finally, it's possible that we could be in a situation where people could be, just screaming in our face, and all we can think of is compassion. The only thought that arises in our mind is, may they be, we practice Tonglen. We go, may they be free of suffering and its causes, and may they have happiness in its causes, and may they be free of suffering. And they're yelling at us, right? And they're mad, but we're completely equanimous, and we're thinking love and compassion. That's Tonglen, which we're going to do right now. So sit up straight, stretch your legs out a little bit. Actually, let's take about a 2-minute break and stretch, because I feel like I'm talking too much. So we're just going to take a second to get some water. If you need to make a potty break, go do that right now. And we'll start back in about 2 or 3 minutes. I want to get some water too. We got any?
Try to find you some.
I get a little. Huh? Oh, you mean 8:30? Oh, hey, I always go over.
I should know this by now, but I thought.
Listen, if you think I go over, you ought to go to Lama Zopa. He starts at
Are
he
you
starts
Lama
at
Zopa?
7.
Are you a supreme being?
Well,
I
you
don't
know,
think
I'm
so.
not Lama Zopa, but you know, he's my teacher, and I've seen.